The afternoon sun was beginning to set over the small Montana town when Lisa stepped off the Greyhound bus. Her legs were shaky from the 18-hour journey, and her heart was pounding so hard she could hear it in her ears. She looked around at the nearly empty bus station, nothing more than a covered bench and a small wooden shelter that had seen better days. She sat down on the bench, clutching her purse against her chest. Inside was everything she owned now. $47, her ID, and a phone she'd turned off 2 states ago. No suitcase, no bags, nothing else. She'd left her entire life behind in Chicago 3 days ago, running with only what she could grab in 5 minutes while he was at work. The evening air was getting cold, and Lisa pulled her thin jacket tighter around herself. She had no plan, no friends here, no family waiting. She'd just picked the farthest destination she could afford and got on the bus. Now sitting in this strange town where she knew absolutely no one, the reality of what she'd done started to sink in. Her hands began to tremble and tears filled her eyes. She quickly wiped them away when she heard a truck pulling into the gravel parking lot. It was an old Ford pickup, red paint faded by years of sun and work. The truck stopped near the station's small office and a man got out. He was tall, wearing worn jeans, work boots, and a cowboy hat that had clearly seen many seasons. He walked with a slight limp toward the office, probably there to pick up a delivery or package. Lisa tried to make herself smaller on the bench, hoping he wouldn't notice her. But as he came back out carrying a large box, their eyes met. He paused for just a moment and she saw something in his expression change. Not pity exactly, but recognition, like he could see straight through to what she was running from. He loaded the box into his truck bed, but instead of driving away, he walked over to where she sat. Lisa's body tensed automatically, every muscle ready to run. She'd learned to be careful around men, especially strangers, but he stopped a respectful distance away and took off his hat. His face was weathered, probably in his late 30s, with lines around his eyes that came from squinting in the sun. There was something gentle in those eyes, though. Something safe. "Evening, ma'am," he said quietly. His voice was deep but soft with a slight Western drawl. "I don't mean to intrude, but are you waiting for someone?" Lisa opened her mouth to lie, to say yes, someone was coming. But the words wouldn't come out. She was so tired of lying, so tired of pretending everything was fine. Instead, she just shook her head slowly. He nodded like he'd expected that answer. He looked around at the empty station, then back at her. "You got a place to stay tonight?" Again, she shook her head. A single tear escaped down her cheek and she angrily brushed it away. She hated feeling this weak, this vulnerable in front of a complete stranger. The man shifted his weight, seeming to think carefully about his next words. "Look, I can see you're in some kind of trouble. And I can see you've got nothing with you. I'm not going to ask questions if you don't want to answer them, but I can't just leave you sitting here when it's getting dark and cold." Lisa finally found her voice. "I'm fine," she said, though they both knew it was a lie. He gave her a small, sad smile. "No, ma'am, you're not. And that's okay. We all have moments when we're not fine." He paused, then added, "My name's Tom. I own a ranch about 20 minutes from here, and I could really use some help." Lisa looked at him suspiciously. She'd heard lines like this before. Men offering help who wanted something in return. "What kind of help?" she asked carefully. Tom put his hat back on and leaned against his truck. "The honest truth? My ranch is falling apart. My wife died 3 years ago, and I've been trying to run the whole operation by myself. The house is a mess, the books are a disaster, and I'm barely keeping my head above water. I need someone who can help manage things, keep the place running while I handle the outdoor work." "I don't know anything about ranches," Lisa admitted. "That's all right." "I don't know much about managing a household anymore either," Tom said with a slight smile. "But I figure we could both learn. I can offer you a room, meals, and a fair wage. Nothing fancy, but it's honest work and a safe place to stay." Lisa studied his face, trying to find the catch, the hidden angle, but he just looked tired and sincere. "Why would you offer this to a complete stranger?" she asked. Tom was quiet for a moment, looking out at the darkening sky. "Because 3 years ago my wife died in my arms and I prayed for someone to help me figure out how to keep living. Nobody came, and I've been barely surviving ever since, just going through the motions." He looked back at her. "Maybe I can't fix whatever you're running from, but I can offer you a chance to catch your breath and figure out your next step. And maybe you can help me remember what it's like to actually live instead of just exist. There was something in his honesty that broke through Lisa's defenses. He wasn't pretending to be a hero or making grand promises. He was just a broken man offering help to another broken person. "I need to tell you something," Lisa said quietly. "I'm running from someone. Someone who might come looking for me. I don't want to bring trouble to your door." Tom nodded slowly. Figured it might be something like that. The ranch is pretty remote. Not many people come out there unless they have specific business. And if anyone does come around causing trouble, well, I've got a shotgun and the sheriff's number on speed dial. Lisa felt something she hadn't felt in years. A tiny spark of hope. "I'm good with numbers," she offered. "I used to do bookkeeping before. Before everything." "Then you're already more qualified than me," Tom said. "I can barely balance a checkbook." He pulled his keys from his pocket. "Look, I know you don't know me from Adam. If you want, we can drive into town first, stop by the diner where everyone knows me, and you can ask around about whether I'm trustworthy. I'll buy you dinner either way, and if you decide you don't want the job, I'll pay for a motel room for the night. No strings attached." Lisa thought about her $47, about the cold night ahead, about the empty bus station and nowhere to go. But more than that, she thought about the genuine kindness in the stranger's eyes. Sometimes you have to take a leap of faith even when you're scared. She stood up slowly, her legs still shaky. "Okay," she said softly. "Let's go to the diner." Tom's face broke into the first real smile she'd seen from him. "Yes, ma'am. And for what it's worth, I think we might just save each other." As Lisa walked toward his truck, she felt the weight of the last few years pressing down on her shoulders. But she also felt something else, something small but powerful. She felt like maybe, just maybe, she'd made the right choice getting on that bus. Maybe this was where her real life could finally begin. The diner was exactly what Lisa had imagined a small-town restaurant would look like. Red vinyl booths, checkered floors, and the smell of coffee and home cooking filling the air. A few locals sat scattered around, and every single one of them looked up when Tom walked in with her. "Evening, Tom," called out the waitress, a woman in her 50s with kind eyes and a warm smile. Then her gaze shifted to Lisa, and there was curiosity there, but not judgment. "Evening, Betty," Tom replied, guiding Lisa to a booth in the corner. "Could we get 2 coffees and whatever the special is tonight?"
"Meatloaf and mashed potatoes, honey," Betty said, already pouring their coffee.
"You want 2 of those?" Tom looked at Lisa, who nodded gratefully. She couldn't remember the last time she'd eaten a real meal. Betty walked away, and Lisa noticed how several people gave Tom friendly nods. Whatever else he was clearly respected here. They sat in silence for a moment, both wrapping their hands around the warm coffee mugs. Finally, Tom spoke. "I figure I should tell you the whole truth about what you'd be walking into." Lisa looked up at him, appreciating his directness. "I'm listening." Tom took a deep breath. "The ranch has been in my family for 4 generations. My great-grandfather built the original house with his own hands. It's about 200 acres, mainly cattle, some horses. Used to be profitable, but..." He paused, stirring his coffee absently. "When my wife got sick, I spent every dollar we had trying to save her. Experimental treatments, specialists, you name it. Nothing worked. She died anyway, and I was left with a mountain of debt." Lisa felt a pang of sympathy in her chest. "I'm sorry," she said quietly. "Thank you," Tom said simply. "After she passed, I just sort of stopped caring about anything. The ranch hands quit because I couldn't pay them regularly. The house fell apart because I couldn't bring myself to go into half the rooms. The finances became such a mess that I just stuffed bills in drawers and hoped they'd disappear." He gave a bitter laugh. "Turns out that's not how bills work." "How bad is it?" Lisa asked. "The bank's threatening foreclosure. I've got maybe 6 months, maybe less, to turn things around. I need to increase the herd, fix the fencing, and get the operation back to making money. But I can't do that if I'm also trying to handle everything else." He looked at her directly. "That's where you'd come in." Betty arrived with 2 steaming plates of meatloaf, and they paused while she set them down. "You 2 need anything else, you just holler," she said, giving Lisa a subtle but encouraging smile before walking away. Lisa picked up her fork but didn't eat yet. "What exactly would you need me to do?" Tom started listing things on his fingers. Manage the household accounts, pay bills on time, keep track of expenses. Help with meal planning and cooking, though I can handle breakfast and pitch in. Answer the phone, deal with suppliers. Maybe help with some of the paperwork for the cattle sales. And honestly, just keep the place from falling apart while I focus on the ranch work." "That's a lot," Lisa said honestly. It is, Tom agreed. But here's what I can offer in return. There's a spare bedroom on the first floor, completely private with its own bathroom. You'd have your own space. 3 meals a day. I'd pay you $800 a month to start. More if we can get the ranch profitable again. And most importantly, he looked at her seriously. Nobody would know you were there unless you wanted them to. The ranch is remote, private. You'd be safe. Lisa felt tears pricking at her eyes again. $800 wasn't much, but it was more than she had. And the idea of safety, of privacy, of a place to hide and heal, that was priceless. Why are you doing this? She asked, her voice barely above a whisper. You don't know anything about me. I could be anyone. Tom was quiet for a long moment, looking down at his untouched food. When he spoke, his voice was rough with emotion. 3 years ago, I was sitting in a hospital room, watching the only person I ever loved slip away. And I remember thinking, how am I supposed to keep going after this? I wanted someone to just tell me it would be okay, to help me figure out how to survive. He looked up at her. Nobody did. And I've been drowning ever since. He took a sip of his coffee before continuing. When I saw you sitting at that bus station with nothing but the clothes on your back and fear in your eyes, I recognized that look. That's the look of someone who's drowning. And I thought, maybe I can't save myself, but maybe I can throw you a rope. And maybe, just maybe, you'll pull us both to shore. Lisa felt something crack open inside her chest. For the first time in years, someone was being completely honest with her. No games, no manipulation, just raw truth. I need to be honest with you too, she said. I left an abusive relationship. I was with him for 5 years, and it got worse every year. The last time he hit me, I realized that if I stayed, I wouldn't survive. So I ran. I don't have any family who would help me. My friend stopped talking to me years ago because he isolated me from everyone. I have literally nothing except what's in my purse. Tom didn't look shocked or uncomfortable. He just nodded. Did you file a police report? No, Lisa admitted. I was too scared. He has connections, and I was afraid they wouldn't believe me. I just wanted to get as far away as possible. That's okay, Tom said gently. Your safety comes first. But if he does find you, if he shows up at the ranch, you need to know that I won't let him hurt you. I might be dealing with my own demons, but I draw a hard line at men who hurt women. My daddy taught me that, and it's one thing I never forgot. Lisa felt the knot in her stomach loosen slightly. You really mean that? Every word, Tom said firmly. Look, I'm not going to pretend I'm some kind of hero. I'm a mess. The house is a disaster. I'm in debt up to my eyeballs. I probably drink too much coffee and not enough water. And there are days when I don't want to get out of bed. But I'm trying to be better. And I think having someone else around, having a purpose beyond just surviving, maybe that's what we both need. Lisa finally started eating her meatloaf, and it was delicious. Real, home-cooked food. She hadn't realized how much she'd missed this. What if I'm terrible at it? She asked. What if I can't do the job? Tom smiled slightly. Then we figure it out together. I'm not looking for perfect. I'm looking for honest effort. And from what I can see, you're a fighter. You got yourself away from a bad situation. You got on a bus with almost no money and no plan. Just knowing you had to save yourself. That takes courage. That takes strength. I think you can do this. They ate in comfortable silence for a few minutes. Lisa's mind was racing with possibilities and fears. Could she really do this? Could she trust this stranger? But then again, what choice did she have? 6 months, Lisa said suddenly. Let's try it for 6 months. If it's not working out for either of us, I'll leave peacefully. No hard feelings. Tom extended his hand across the table. 6 months, and Lisa? I can't promise it'll be easy. The ranch needs a lot of work, and I'm not always great company. But I can promise I'll never hurt you. I'll never take advantage of you, and I'll always be straight with you. Deal? Lisa looked at his hand, calloused and weathered from years of hard work. Then she looked at his face, at the genuine kindness there. She thought about the cold bus station, the empty night ahead, the fear that had been her constant companion for years. She reached out and shook his hand firmly. Deal. As they finished their meal and Tom paid the bill, Lisa felt something she hadn't felt in a very long time. She felt hope. Real, genuine hope that maybe her life could be different. That maybe she could build something new from the ashes of everything she'd lost. When they walked out of the diner and headed toward Tom's truck, Lisa looked up at the stars beginning to appear in the darkening sky. They were brighter here than they'd ever been in the city. Everything was different here. And maybe, just maybe, Different was exactly what she needed. Tom opened the passenger door for her, and as she climbed in, he said quietly, "Welcome to your new start. Lisa, let's see where it takes us." As they drove into the night toward the ranch, Lisa felt the first real smile in years cross her face. She was still scared, still uncertain, but for the first time in forever, she was also hopeful. And that was enough. The first morning at the ranch, Lisa woke up to the sound of roosters crowing at 5 in the morning. She'd barely slept, her mind spinning with everything that had happened in the last 24 hours. The room Tom had given her was simple but clean. A double bed with a handmade quilt, an old dresser, and a window that looked out over fields that seemed to stretch forever. She got dressed in the same clothes she'd worn for 3 days now and ventured out into the kitchen. Tom was already up, standing at the stove trying to cook eggs that were quickly burning. The kitchen was cluttered with dishes from what looked like weeks, maybe months. The counters were covered in papers, old mail, and coffee cups. "Morning," Tom said, looking embarrassed as he scraped the ruined eggs into the trash. I'm not much of a cook anymore. There's cereal in the cabinet if you want." Lisa looked around at the chaos and felt overwhelmed. This wasn't just a messy house. This was years of grief and neglect. But she'd made a deal, and she wasn't going to back out on day one. "How about I handle breakfast from now on?" she offered. "You get started on your outside work, and I'll figure things out in here." Tom looked relieved. "You sure?" "I'm sure. Go on." After he left, Lisa spent an hour just trying to find where things were. The refrigerator had expired food from months ago. The pantry was a mix of ancient canned goods and empty shelves. The dishes were piled so high in the sink that she had to wash some just to have clean plates for breakfast. When Tom came back in 2 hours later, dirty and sweating from morning chores, he stopped dead in the doorway. The kitchen was clean. The dishes were done. Fresh coffee was brewing. And Lisa had managed to make pancakes from the few ingredients she'd found. "How did you?" he started. "Don't get too excited," Lisa said, sliding pancakes onto a plate. "This is all the food that was left. We need to go grocery shopping today, like seriously need to." Tom sat down and took a bite. His eyes widened. "These are incredible. I haven't had pancakes in years." They ate together, and Lisa pulled out a notebook she'd found in a drawer. "Okay, so I need to understand what I'm working with. Can you show me where you keep the bills, the bank statements, any financial records?" Tom's face fell. "It's bad, Lisa. Really bad. I know. You told me. But I can't help if I don't know exactly how bad." What followed was the most depressing treasure hunt Lisa had ever experienced. Bills were stuffed in drawers, shoved in closets, even found in the barn. Many were marked "Final Notice" in angry red letters. Tom hadn't opened his bank statements in 6 months. The property tax was 3 years overdue. The mortgage payments were sporadic at best. Lisa spread everything out on the dining room table and started making lists. After 2 hours of sorting, she looked up at Tom, who was pacing nervously. "Okay," she said calmly, though her heart was pounding. "The good news is you're not dead yet. The bad news is you're on life support. We need to make some serious changes, and we need to make them now." Over the next few days, Lisa threw herself into understanding ranch life. She woke up at 5 every morning, made breakfast, and then spent hours on the phone with creditors negotiating payment plans. She called the bank and managed to get a 3-month extension on the foreclosure by promising detailed financial plans and showing the improvements she'd already made. But ranch work was completely foreign to her. The first time Tom asked her to help feed the horses, she was terrified. These animals were huge. When she approached with the feed bucket, one of them snorted loudly, and she dropped the bucket and ran. Tom found her sitting on the porch steps, embarrassed and frustrated. "I'm sorry," she said. "I told you I didn't know anything about this." He sat down next to her. "That mare that scared you? Her name's Daisy. She's the gentlest horse we've got. She was just saying hello in horse language." "That was hello?" Lisa asked incredulously. Tom smiled, the first real smile she'd seen from him. "Come on, I'll teach you." Slowly, carefully, Tom showed her how to approach the horses, how to read their body language, how to feed them without fear. By the end of the week, Lisa could handle Daisy without trembling. It wasn't much, but it was progress. The ranch hands, when they occasionally showed up for work, were suspicious of her. There were only two of them left, Carlos and his son Danny, who worked part-time when Tom could afford to pay them. They spoke to her politely but kept their distance, clearly wondering what this city woman was doing on their ranch. One afternoon, Lisa overheard them talking in Spanish near the barn. She'd learned Spanish in high school and college, though she pretended not to understand. Carlos was saying, "She won't last a month. These city girls never do. She'll run back to wherever she came from." It stung, but it also lit a fire in Lisa. She was determined to prove them wrong. The cooking was another disaster at first. She tried to make a pot roast like her grandmother used to make, but she forgot it in the oven while dealing with a supplier on the phone. The smoke alarm went off and Tom came running from the barn thinking there was a real fire. The roast was black as coal. "I'm so sorry," Lisa said, waving smoke out of the kitchen. "I'll figure this out, I promise." Tom looked at the ruined roast, and then at her frustrated face, and he started laughing. Actually laughing. It was the first time she'd heard him laugh, and it transformed his whole face. "What's so funny?" she asked, though she found herself smiling too. "My wife used to burn dinner at least once a week," he said, wiping his eyes. "She'd get so mad at herself. I always told her that's what cereal was invented for." He pulled out 2 bowls from the cabinet. Lucky Charms or Frosted Flakes. They ate cereal for dinner that night, sitting at the kitchen table like 2 kids, and Lisa realized something important. Tom wasn't expecting her to be perfect. He was just grateful she was trying. But the biggest challenge was the loneliness. The ranch was 20 minutes from town, and there was nothing around but fields and sky. Lisa was used to the constant noise of the city, sirens and traffic and people. Here the silence was so complete it was almost frightening. At night she'd lie in bed listening to crickets and wind, and she'd think about her old life. Not the bad parts, but the small things she missed. Her favorite coffee shop, the sound of rain on her apartment window, her old routine. One particularly hard evening, about 3 weeks in, Lisa was sitting on the porch watching the sunset when Tom came and sat beside her. "You okay?" he asked. "Honestly, I don't know," Lisa admitted. "Some days I feel like I'm getting the hang of this. Other days I feel like I'm drowning. I burned lunch today. The checkbook won't balance no matter how many times I add it up. And I spent an hour trying to figure out how to work the washing machine before I realized it was unplugged." Tom was quiet for a moment. "You know what I see?" he said finally. "I see someone who's been here less than a month and has already transformed this place. The house is clean for the first time in 3 years. We're on payment plans with all the creditors. You negotiated better rates with 3 of our suppliers. And this morning I saw you feeding Daisy without a trace of fear." "I'm still scared of the cows," Lisa admitted. "Everyone's scared of the cows. They're big and dumb and unpredictable," Tom said with a slight smile. "But my point is, you're doing better than you think. And yeah, you burned lunch. So what? I've been burning meals for 3 years. You're learning, and you're not giving up. That's what matters." Lisa felt tears in her eyes. She couldn't remember the last time someone had recognized her efforts, had told her she was doing well. "Thank you," she whispered. They sat in comfortable silence as the sun painted the sky in shades of orange and pink. And Lisa realized something. She wasn't just running anymore. She was building skills, building confidence, building a new life. It was hard and she was often scared, but she was doing it. That night she balanced the checkbook successfully for the first time. She called Tom into the office to show him, pointing proudly at the matching numbers. "We're still broke," she said, "but at least now we know exactly how broke we are. That's progress." Tom looked at her work, at the organized files and color-coded spreadsheets, and shook his head in wonder. "You're amazing, you know that?" Lisa felt her cheeks warm. "I'm just doing my job." "No," Tom said seriously. "You're saving my life, both literally and figuratively. I want you to know that." As Lisa got ready for bed that night, she looked at herself in the bathroom mirror. Her face had more color than it had in years. There were no new bruises, no fear in her eyes. She was exhausted, but in a good way, the kind of tired that comes from honest work instead of constant anxiety. She was still scared of what tomorrow might bring, still worried about being found, still uncertain about the future. But for the first time in forever, she was also proud of herself. She was surviving. More than that, she was learning to live again, and that was worth every burned meal and every balanced checkbook and every small victory. 3 months into her new life at the ranch, Lisa had established a comfortable routine. She woke before dawn, had coffee ready when Tom came in from his first round of morning chores, and they'd eat breakfast together before starting their separate work. The house had been transformed from a neglected bachelor pad into an actual home. Fresh curtains hung in the windows. The floors were clean. Even the front porch had potted plants now. The finances were still tight, but they were manageable. Lisa had created a detailed budget that Tom actually stuck to, and she'd found several ways to cut costs without sacrificing quality. She'd even started selling eggs from the chickens at the farmer's market in town, bringing in a small but steady extra income. Carlos and Danny had warmed up to her after she'd helped them fix a broken tractor by finding the right part online for half the price the local dealer quoted. "Maybe you're not so bad for a city girl," Carlos had said with a grin. It was the highest compliment she could have hoped for, but there was still a wall between her and Tom. They were friendly, respectful, even comfortable around each other. But neither of them talked about the deeper things, the painful things. They kept their conversations focused on ranch business, weather, and safe topics. Lisa knew almost nothing about Tom's late wife, and he never asked about her past beyond what she'd told him that first night. That changed on a Thursday evening in late spring when the Weather Service issued a severe thunderstorm warning. Lisa had never been afraid of storms before, but that was before. Before he'd locked her in the basement during a storm as punishment for talking to a male cashier at the grocery store. Before she'd spent 3 hours in the dark, listening to thunder and his footsteps above her head, wondering if he'd ever let her out. The first rumble of thunder sent Lisa's heart racing. She tried to focus on the dinner she was preparing, tried to breathe through the rising panic. But when lightning flashed bright through the kitchen window, followed immediately by a crack of thunder so loud it shook the house, something inside her broke. The wooden spoon fell from her hand. Her vision tunneled, her breath came in short, painful gasps. She couldn't get enough air. The kitchen was spinning, and she was back in that basement, trapped and terrified. Tom found her sitting on the kitchen floor, back against the cabinets, hyperventilating. He'd seen panic attacks before. His wife had them during her illness, so he knew not to touch her suddenly or crowd her. He sat down on the floor a few feet away from her, his voice calm and steady. "Lisa, you're safe. You're here with me on the ranch. You're not wherever your mind is taking you. Can you hear my voice?" She nodded, unable to speak, tears streaming down her face. "Good, that's good. Now I want you to focus on something. Tell me 5 things you can see right now." Lisa's eyes darted around the kitchen. "Stove," she gasped. "Table, your boots, coffee pot, window. Perfect. Now 4 things you can touch. You don't have to touch them, just tell me what they are. Floor, my shirt, cabinet, rug. You're doing great. 3 things you can hear. Your voice, rain, wind." Her breathing was slowing slightly. 2 things you can smell. Dinner, coffee. 1 thing you can taste. Salt. From tears. Her breathing had returned to almost normal. The panic was receding, leaving her exhausted and embarrassed. Tom was still sitting across from her, patient and calm. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I'm so sorry." "Don't be," Tom said gently. "There's nothing to apologize for. Do you want to talk about it?" Lisa shook her head, then stopped. Maybe she did want to talk about it. Maybe she was tired of carrying it all alone. "He used to lock me in the basement during storms," she said quietly. "Said I needed to learn to be quiet, to not complain. The first time I screamed and cried. So the next time he left me there overnight." Tom's jaw tightened, but he kept his voice soft. "How long were you with him?" 5 years. It wasn't always bad. At first he was charming, attentive. Then little things started. Comments about my clothes, my friends, who I could talk to, where I could go. By the time he first hit me, I was so isolated I had no one to turn to. And he always apologized after, always promised it wouldn't happen again. Always made me believe it was somehow my fault. It wasn't, Tom said firmly. None of it was your fault. You know that, right? My head knows it, Lisa said. My heart is still learning it. They sat in silence for a moment, the storm raging outside, but the panic inside her finally settling. Lisa looked at Tom, really looked at him. Your turn, she said. Tell me about her. Your wife. Tom leaned his head back against the cabinets, his eyes distant. Her name was Rachel. We met in high school, got married at 22. Everyone said we were too young, but we were sure. We had 15 good years together. He paused, his voice thick with emotion. She was the best person I ever knew. Kind to everyone. Always singing while she cooked. She loved this ranch almost as much as I did. What happened? Lisa asked gently. Cancer. Started in her lungs even though she never smoked a day in her life. By the time we caught it, it had spread everywhere. The doctors gave her 6 months. She fought for 2 years. He wiped his eyes. Those last months I was so focused on saving her that I let everything else fall apart. The ranch, the finances, my own health. I thought if I just spent every dollar, tried every treatment, maybe I could keep her. But you can't bargain with cancer. What was the hardest part? Lisa asked. Tom thought for a long moment. The night she died, she looked at me and said, Promise me you'll keep living. Not just surviving, but really living. Find joy again. I promised her because it's what she needed to hear, but I broke that promise. For 3 years, I've just been going through the motions, waiting for something to change. Until you showed up at that bus station. Lisa felt tears flowing freely now, but they weren't panic tears. They were cleansing tears, shared grief tears. I'm broken too, she admitted. I jump at loud noises. I have nightmares. I'm scared all the time that he'll find me. I don't know if I'll ever be normal again. Maybe normal is overrated, Tom said. Maybe we're both just perfectly broken in ways that somehow fit together. You needed a safe place to land, and I needed a reason to keep this ranch running. You needed someone who wouldn't hurt you, and I needed someone who understood loss and grief. Maybe that's enough. Another crack of thunder rolled through, but this time Lisa didn't panic. Tom noticed. You okay? Yeah, she said, surprised. Yeah, I think I am. It's easier when I'm not alone. They stayed there on the kitchen floor, 2 broken people sharing their pain, as the storm raged outside, and something shifted between them. Something fundamental. The walls they'd each built around their hearts developed cracks, letting light in for the first time in years. Eventually, they got up and finished making dinner together. Tom told her stories about Rachel, the funny ones, the sweet ones. Lisa told him about her life before, the dreams she'd had, the person she'd wanted to be. They talked until midnight, long after the storm had passed, sharing pieces of themselves they'd kept hidden. When Lisa finally went to bed that night, she felt lighter somehow. The shame she'd been carrying, the belief that she was fundamentally damaged, had lessened. Because Tom looked at her with all her broken pieces, and he didn't see someone weak or pathetic. He saw someone strong enough to survive and brave enough to start over. And she looked at him with his grief and his failing ranch and his broken promises to his late wife, and she didn't see a failure. She saw someone who was trying his hardest to honor the people he'd lost by still being here, still fighting. The next morning at breakfast, Tom said something that surprised her. I'm glad you're here, Lisa. Not just because you're helping with the ranch. I'm glad you're here because you make this place feel like a home again. You make me remember what it's like to care about tomorrow. Lisa smiled, feeling warmth spread through her chest. I'm glad I'm here too. For the first time in years, I feel like I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be. They clinked their coffee mugs together, a simple gesture that felt like a promise. Whatever came next, whatever challenges they faced, they'd face them together. 2 broken people, learning to build something whole. And outside the kitchen window, the sun was rising over the ranch, painting everything in shades of gold and pink. A new day full of possibilities, full of hope, full of second chances that neither of them thought they deserved, but were finally brave enough to take. The walls between them hadn't completely fallen. Not yet, but they'd cracked wide enough to let each other in. And that was a start, a good start, maybe even the beginning of something neither of them had dared to hope for, something like healing, something like friendship, something that might eventually, carefully, gently become something more. Spring had turned into early summer, and the ranch was showing real signs of life again. The fence lines were repaired, The cattle herd was healthy, and Tom had even hired back 2 additional part-time workers. The financial situation was still tight, but they were making progress. More importantly, Tom and Lisa had developed an easy partnership that felt natural, like they'd been working together for years instead of months. But something else was growing too, something neither of them wanted to name. Lisa found herself watching Tom when he didn't know she was looking. The way he was gentle with the horses, the way he'd leave wildflowers on the kitchen table after his morning rides, the way his whole face changed when he smiled, which he was doing more and more often. Tom caught himself doing the same thing. Noticing how Lisa hummed while she cooked, how she'd gotten tanned and healthy looking from helping with outdoor chores, how her laugh, rare at first, had become a regular sound in the house, how the ranch felt alive again, not because of the work they were doing, but because she was in it. One evening they were sitting on the porch after dinner, watching fireflies dance in the gathering darkness. It had become their routine, this quiet time together at day's end. Tom was telling her about his plans to expand the vegetable garden when Lisa's phone rang. She pulled it from her pocket and froze. The number was blocked. Her hands started shaking. "Don't answer it," Tom said quickly, seeing her reaction. But Lisa was already hitting the green button, some part of her needing to know. She lifted the phone to her ear, and the voice on the other end made her blood run cold. "Hello, Lisa. Miss me?" It was him. After 5 months of silence, somehow he'd gotten her number. His voice was smooth, controlled, which was somehow worse than if he'd been yelling. "How did you find me?" she whispered. "Did you really think you could just disappear? I've been watching your social media. Those idiots in town kept posting about the farmer's market. One of them tagged the ranch. It wasn't hard to find the number." His voice hardened. "You need to come home now. This little adventure is over." "I'm not coming back," Lisa said, her voice stronger than she felt. "Leave me alone. You think you can just leave me? After everything I've done for you? You're nothing without me, Lisa, nobody. And I'm going to prove that to you." Tom gently took the phone from her hand. She said, "Leave her alone. She's not coming back. And if you call this number again, I'll be filing a police report for harassment." There was silence on the other end, then a bitter laugh. "Oh, I see. You've found yourself a new protector. How sweet. Let me tell you something, Cowboy. She'll run from you too eventually. That's what she does. And when she does, I'll be waiting." The line went dead. Lisa was shaking so hard she could barely stand. Tom guided her to the porch chair and knelt in front of her. "Hey, look at me. You're safe. He doesn't know exactly where you are. He's just trying to scare you." "It's working," Lisa said through chattering teeth. "Tom, he always finds a way. He'll come here. He'll ruin everything." "Then we'll deal with it," Tom said firmly. "Tomorrow, we're going to the sheriff's office. We're filing reports. We're getting a restraining order. And I'm getting better locks on all the doors." Over the next few days, Tom was true to his word. They went to the sheriff, a no-nonsense woman named Deputy Chen who took Lisa's statement seriously and started building a case. They changed Lisa's phone number and made her social media accounts private. Tom installed new locks and a security system, something he couldn't really afford but did anyway. But the damage was done. Lisa was constantly looking over her shoulder. Every car that drove past the ranch made her jump. She had nightmares every night, waking up gasping and terrified. Tom would hear her and come knock on her door just to remind her she wasn't alone. The stress was affecting everything. Lisa made mistakes in the bookkeeping she never would have made before. She burned dinner 3 times in 1 week. She snapped at Carlos when he asked a simple question, then immediately apologized with tears in her eyes. One afternoon, Tom found her in the barn, sitting in an empty stall, crying. He sat down next to her in the hay, not touching her, just being present. "I'm sorry," she said. "I'm falling apart. I'm ruining everything." "You're not ruining anything," Tom said gently. "You're scared? That's normal. That's human." "I thought I was getting better," Lisa said. "I thought I was building a new life. But one phone call and I'm right back to being that terrified woman at the bus station." "No," Tom said firmly. "That woman at the bus station was brave enough to leave. She was brave enough to start over. She's still brave, Lisa. Being scared doesn't make you weak. Facing your fear despite being terrified, that's what makes you strong." Lisa looked at him. This man who'd given her a chance when she had nothing, who'd been patient with her mistakes and kind through her healing. and she realized with sudden clarity that somewhere along the way she'd fallen in love with him. The thought terrified her almost as much as the phone call had. "Tom," she said quietly, "I need to tell you something. I think I should leave." His face went pale. "What, why?" "Because I'm bringing danger to your door. Because my problems are becoming your problems. Because you've worked so hard to save this ranch and I can't be the reason you lose it." Tom was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was rough with emotion. "Do you want to leave?" "Honestly?" "No," Lisa admitted. "I've never felt safer or happier anywhere. But what I want doesn't matter if I'm putting you at risk." "It matters to me," Tom said. He turned to face her fully. "Lisa, I need to tell you something too. These past few months with you here, I've felt more alive than I have in 3 years. You didn't just save my ranch, you saved me. You reminded me what it's like to look forward to tomorrow, to care about something beyond just surviving. And He paused, seeming to gather courage. "I've developed feelings for you. Real feelings. I tried not to because I didn't want to complicate things or make you uncomfortable. But sitting here listening to you talk about leaving, I can't keep it in anymore." Lisa felt tears streaming down her face, but they weren't sad tears. "I have feelings for you too," she whispered. "I think I have for a while now. But I'm so broken, Tom. I have so much trauma and fear and damage. You deserve someone whole, someone who doesn't come with all this baggage." Tom reached out slowly, giving her time to pull away, and gently wiped a tear from her cheek. "We're both broken, remember? That's what we decided. But maybe we can be broken together. Maybe we can help each other heal." He paused. "I loved my wife, Lisa. I'll always love her. But she's gone, and I'm still here. And being with you doesn't diminish what I had with her. It just means my heart is big enough for both." "What if he comes here?" Lisa asked. "What if he tries to hurt you?" "Then he'll find out that threatening people I care about is a really bad idea," Tom said with unexpected steel in his voice. "I'm not going to let him hurt you again. And I'm not going to let him scare you away from the life we're building." Lisa let herself lean against him, and Tom wrapped his arms around her carefully like she was something precious. They sat there in the quiet barn, holding each other while the late afternoon sun filtered through the cracks in the walls. "I'm scared," Lisa admitted. "Of him, of these feelings, of everything." "Me too," Tom said honestly. "I'm scared of losing you. Of caring this much again after I swore I'd never put my heart on the line. Of not being enough to keep you safe. But I'm more scared of not trying. Of letting fear win again." They stayed there until the sun set, talking about their fears and their hopes. They agreed to take things slow, to let whatever was growing between them develop naturally. They agreed to face the threat together rather than running from it. They agreed that neither of them was perfect or whole, but maybe together they could build something strong. That night, as Lisa lay in bed, her phone buzzed with a text from Tom. "Thank you for staying. Sleep well. I'm right down the hall if you need anything." She smiled and texted back, "Thank you for giving me a reason to stay." The threat was still out there. The danger was real, but for the first time Lisa felt like she wasn't facing it alone. She had someone who saw all her broken pieces and chose to stay anyway. Someone who made her believe that maybe, just maybe, she deserved a happy ending after all. And in his own room, Tom lay awake thinking about the woman down the hall who'd stumbled into his life and changed everything. The woman who made him want to be better, to try harder, to live instead of just exist. He'd lost one great love and he never thought he'd find another. But here she was, broken and beautiful and brave, and he was falling for her more every day. Outside, the night was peaceful, stars bright in the clear sky. But both of them knew the peace might not last. Storms were coming, but this time they'd face them together, and that made all the difference. The threatening phone calls continued sporadically over the next 2 weeks. Sometimes he'd call and just breathe into the phone. Sometimes he'd leave voicemails describing exactly what he'd do when he found her. Deputy Chen assured them they were building a strong case. But restraining orders took time, and he was calling from different numbers each time, making him hard to trace. Lisa tried to stay strong, tried to focus on the life she was building with Tom. They'd settled into a new kind of partnership, one that included stolen glances and gentle touches, hands brushing while doing dishes, sitting closer on the porch. They hadn't kissed yet, both of them moving carefully, letting trust build slowly. But the feelings were there, growing stronger every day. Tom had even started talking about the future in concrete terms. They'd applied for a grant to expand the ranch's sustainable practices, something Lisa had researched and written the proposal for. If they got it, they could finally get ahead instead of just treading water. He talked about maybe offering ranch experiences to tourists, using Lisa's organizational skills to build a side business. It felt like life was finally moving in the right direction. That's when everything fell apart. It happened on a Tuesday evening. Tom was out checking the north pasture fence line, something that would take him at least 2 hours. Carlos and Danny had left for the day. Lisa was alone in the house making dinner and humming along to music on the radio. She didn't hear the car pull up. Didn't know anything was wrong until she heard heavy footsteps on the porch. Then pounding on the door. Then his voice slurred and angry. "Lisa, open this door. I know you're in there." Her blood turned to ice. She stood frozen in the kitchen, the wooden spoon still in her hand, unable to move or breathe or think. "I said open the door." More pounding, harder this time. "You can't hide from me. I'll break this door down." Lisa's paralysis broke. She ran to the living room where Tom kept his shotgun in a locked cabinet. Her hands were shaking so badly she could barely dial the combination. She got the gun out just as she heard glass breaking. He was coming through the window. She called 911, her voice high and panicked, giving them the address. "Please hurry, please, he's breaking in." The operator stayed on the line trying to calm her, but Lisa could hear him moving through the house, knocking things over, shouting her name. She backed into the corner of the living room, the shotgun raised, praying she wouldn't have to use it. He appeared in the doorway, and Lisa's heart nearly stopped. He looked terrible, wild-eyed and disheveled, obviously drunk or high or both. This wasn't the controlled, manipulative person she'd lived with for 5 years. This was someone desperate and dangerous. "There you are," he said, his voice dropping to that dangerous quiet she knew too well. "Put the gun down, Lisa. You're not going to shoot me. You don't have it in you." "Stay back," Lisa said, her voice shaking but determined. "The police are coming. Just leave. Please just leave." "You think you can just leave me and play house with some cowboy?" He took a step closer. "You think you're better than me now? You're nothing, Lisa. You're pathetic. You'll always be pathetic. That's close enough." The voice came from behind him. Tom stood in the doorway and his face was carved from stone. He must have seen the broken window, heard the shouting. He was holding a rifle and, unlike Lisa, his hands were steady. "Who the hell are you?" the intruder spat. "I'm the man who's giving you one chance to walk out of here before the sheriff arrives," Tom said calmly. "You've got about 3 minutes. I suggest you use them to leave. Or what? You'll shoot me? I don't think so." But there was fear in his eyes now. Uncertainty. "Try me," Tom said. And there was something in his voice that made it clear this wasn't a bluff. "You broke into my home. Threatened someone under my protection. In Montana? We have very clear laws about defending property and people. I will not hesitate." They stood there in a terrible standoff, Lisa in the corner with the shotgun, Tom blocking the doorway with the rifle, and her ex-partner calculating his odds. In the distance, sirens were growing louder. "This isn't over," he snarled at Lisa. "You hear me? This isn't over." "Yes, it is," Lisa said, and she was surprised by the strength in her own voice. "I'm not afraid of you anymore. I'm not coming back. And if you ever come near me again, I won't need Tom's help. I'll handle you myself." The sirens were right outside now. Her ex looked between them, then turned and ran, crashing back through the house and out the broken window. 30 seconds later, Deputy Chen and 2 other officers came through the door, weapons drawn. What followed was chaos. Statements were taken. The broken window was photographed. An APB was put out for her ex-partner. And this time there was no question about the restraining order or the charges. Breaking and entering, criminal threatening, destruction of property. He'd crossed too many lines. After the police left, Lisa and Tom stood in the kitchen looking at the mess. Broken glass everywhere. Dinner burned on the stove. Everything that had felt safe and secure just an hour ago now felt violated. "I'm so sorry," Lisa said, tears finally coming. "This is all my fault. Your house, your safety, everything. I should have left when he first called. I should have known he'd come here." Tom set down his rifle and pulled her into his arms. "Stop, just stop. None of this is your fault. He did this. He chose to come here. He chose to break in. You're the victim, Lisa, not the problem. But your window, your home, it can all be fixed," Tom said firmly. "Glass can be replaced. Wood can be repaired. But if you'd left, if you'd run again, I don't know if you'd ever have stopped running. and I don't know if I'd ever have stopped regretting that I let you go." Lisa pulled back to look at him. "How can you still want me here after this? After he brought violence to your door?" Tom cupped her face in his hands. "Because I love you," he said simply. "I know we said we'd take it slow, and I know this probably isn't the right time, but I can't hold it in anymore. I love you, Lisa. Not despite your past, not in spite of the danger. I love you because you're brave and kind and strong. Because you make me want to be better. Because when I think about my future, you're in every part of it." Lisa started crying harder, but they were good tears this time. "I love you too," she whispered. "I've been so scared to say it, to feel it. I thought love meant control and pain. But you showed me it could mean safety and partnership and home." They held each other in the damaged kitchen as the sun set outside. Two people who'd found each other at their lowest points and built something beautiful from the broken pieces. Later that night, after they'd cleaned up the glass and boarded up the window, they sat together on the couch. Lisa's head was on Tom's shoulder, his arm around her. "What if they don't catch him?" Lisa asked quietly. "What if he comes back?" "Then we'll be ready," Tom said. "And we'll keep being ready until he realizes you're not his to control anymore." "But Lisa, I want you to know something. You faced him tonight. You stood up to him with that shotgun. You told him you weren't afraid anymore. That took incredible courage." "I was terrified," Lisa admitted. "Being brave doesn't mean not being scared. It means being scared and doing it anyway." Tom kissed the top of her head. "I'm so proud of you." They sat in comfortable silence for a while, processing everything that had happened. Finally, Lisa said, "Tom, will you stay with me tonight?" "Not anything romantic, just, I don't want to be alone." "Of course," Tom said without hesitation. "I'll sleep in the chair in your room if that's okay." "Thank you," Lisa whispered. As they got ready for bed, Lisa realized something important. She'd survived. She'd faced her worst fear. The person who'd controlled and hurt her for years, and she'd stood her ground. She hadn't run. She hadn't crumbled. She'd been strong, and she hadn't been alone. Tom had been there, backing her up, protecting her without trying to control her. That was the difference. That was love. That night, Tom did sleep in the chair in her room. And every time Lisa woke from a nightmare, he was there, a solid presence in the darkness, reminding her she was safe. And slowly, gradually, she began to believe it. The danger wasn't over. Her ex was still out there somewhere. But something fundamental had shifted. Lisa wasn't running anymore. She was standing her ground. She was fighting for the life and the love she'd found. And with Tom beside her, she finally believed she could win. Her ex-partner was arrested 2 days later trying to cross the state line. The police found drugs in his car, and combined with the breaking and entering charges, he was looking at serious prison time. Deputy Chen called with the news, and Lisa felt something release in her chest that she'd been holding tight for years. It wasn't completely over yet. There would be court dates and testimonies, but he was behind bars. He couldn't hurt her anymore. Tom was fixing the broken window when she got the news. She walked outside and just stood there, feeling the summer sun on her face, breathing freely for what felt like the first time ever. "You okay?" Tom asked, climbing down from the ladder. "He's in jail," Lisa said, and then she started laughing and crying at the same time. "He's actually in jail. He can't hurt me. He can't call me. He can't come here." Tom pulled her into a hug, and they stood there in the yard holding each other while Lisa cried out years of fear and tension. When she finally pulled back, Tom was smiling at her. "What?" she asked, wiping her eyes. "You're free," he said simply. "Really, truly free. So what do you want to do with that freedom?" Lisa thought about it. "I want to live," she said. "Really live, not just survive. I want to help you save this ranch. I want to build something meaningful. And I want to be with you if you'll still have me." "Still have you?" Tom laughed. "Lisa, I'm not letting you go. Ever. Unless that's what you want." "It's not," Lisa said firmly. "I'm exactly where I want to be." Over the next few weeks, they settled into a new rhythm. This one included goodnight kisses and good morning embraces, date nights watching movies on the old couch, working side by side during the day, but also making time to just be together. It was domestic and simple and perfect. The grant application Lisa had written came through, bringing $60,000 to modernize the ranch's operations and implement sustainable practices. It was enough to not only save the ranch, but to actually make it thrive. Tom was overwhelmed when he got the letter, reading it 3 times before he believed it was real. "You did this. he said to Lisa. Your writing, your research, your ideas. You saved my family's legacy. We did it together, Lisa corrected. You gave me a place to land. I'm just returning the favor. They used part of the money to hire back the full crew of ranch hands, including Carlos and Danny full-time. They installed solar panels and a new irrigation system. They purchased better equipment and expanded the herd responsibly. The ranch began to look like what it had been in Tom's grandfather's time, prosperous and well-maintained. But Lisa had another idea, one that had been growing in her mind since she'd arrived. One evening she brought it up over dinner. What if we offered ranch retreats? She said. Not for tourists, but for women escaping abusive situations. A place where they could come, help with ranch work, learn new skills, and just breathe for a while. We could partner with shelters in the region, offer it for free or at cost. Tom set down his fork, looking at her thoughtfully. That's a big undertaking, I know. But Tom, this place saved my life. The work, the open space, the peace. What if we could give that to other women who need it? Lisa's eyes were shining. We could call it Second Chance Ranch or something. Offer weekend retreats or week-long programs. Teach them about self-sufficiency. Give them time to heal. Tom reached across the table and took her hand. I think it's a beautiful idea. Let's do it. They spent the next 2 months planning. Lisa researched similar programs, reached out to shelters and advocacy groups, and wrote up a detailed proposal. Tom renovated an old bunkhouse on the property into comfortable dormitory-style housing. They created a program that included ranch work, counseling sessions with volunteer therapists, and life skills workshops. The first retreat happened in early fall. 5 women arrived, all at different stages of leaving abusive situations. Lisa's heart ached seeing their scared faces, recognizing herself in each of them. But by the end of the weekend, those same women were laughing, riding horses, and talking about their futures with hope instead of fear. One woman, a young mother named Jennifer, pulled Lisa aside on the last day. Thank you, she said, tears in her eyes. I came here thinking I was broken beyond repair, but watching you, seeing what you've built here, it gives me hope that I can do it too. You can, Lisa said firmly. And you will. It won't be easy, but it's worth it. You're worth it. After the women left, Tom found Lisa sitting on the porch, crying quietly. He sat beside her and pulled her close. Those were good tears, right? The best tears, Lisa said. I just keep thinking about who I was 8 months ago, sitting at that bus station with nothing. And now look at what we've built. We're actually helping people, Tom. We're making a difference. You're making a difference, Tom corrected. This was your vision. Our vision, Lisa said. I couldn't do any of this without you. As fall turned toward winter, life on the ranch found a comfortable pattern. The retreats continued monthly, each one touching more lives. The ranch itself was finally profitable, and they'd even started putting money into savings. Carlos told Tom it was the best the place had looked in 20 years, but the most important change was personal. Tom and Lisa had become true partners in every sense. They balanced each other, supported each other, and loved each other deeply. The trauma was still there, the grief and the scars, but they were healing together. One evening in November, Tom asked Lisa to go on a ride with him. They rode out to a hilltop overlooking the ranch, arriving just as the sun was setting. The view was spectacular, the entire property spread out below them in shades of gold and amber. Tom dismounted and helped Lisa down, then kept holding her hands. I want to show you something, he said, leading her to a flat rock. Carved into it were initials and dates going back generations. Every major moment in my family's history on this land gets marked here. Weddings, births, the founding of the ranch. He pulled out a pocket knife and knelt down. Lisa watched as he carefully carved new initials and the date. When he finished, she saw it said T+L with today's date, and below it one word, forever. When she looked up, Tom was still kneeling, but now he was holding a simple silver ring. I'm not good with fancy words, he said, his voice rough with emotion. But I know that you're the best thing that's ever happened to me. You saved me, Lisa. You gave me a reason to live again, and I want to spend whatever time I have left on this earth making you happy. Will you marry me? Lisa was crying again, but smiling so wide her face hurt. Yes, she said. Yes, absolutely yes. Tom stood and slipped the ring on her finger, then kissed her as the sun painted the sky in brilliant colors behind them. When they pulled apart, both of them were crying and laughing at the same time. I love you, Lisa said. I never thought I'd get to say those words and mean them. But I do. I love you so much. I love you too, Tom said. And I promise you every single day for the rest of our lives I'm going to prove that love doesn't have to hurt. That it can be safe and kind and real. They stood there on the hilltop, holding each other as darkness fell and stars began appearing. Two broken people who'd found each other at exactly the right moment. Who'd built something beautiful from pain and loss and second chances. The ranch spread out below them, lights from the house warm and welcoming. Their home, their future, their second chance at happiness, and carved in stone at their feet was the promise. Forever. As they rode back to the ranch in the moonlight, Lisa thought about the woman she'd been at that bus station. Scared, alone, with nothing but $47 and hope, she wished she could go back and tell that woman that everything would be okay, that she'd find safety and purpose and love, that she'd become strong enough to help others find their own second chances. But maybe she didn't need to go back. Maybe it was enough to live fully in this moment with this man, in this life they'd built together. Maybe it was enough to be happy, truly happy, for the first time in her life. And as they put the horses away for the night and walked hand in hand back to the house, Lisa knew with absolute certainty that she was finally home. 1 year after that life-changing day at the bus station, Lisa stood in front of a mirror in the ranch house adjusting her simple white dress. It wasn't fancy or expensive, just a knee-length cotton dress with lace at the shoulders. But it was perfect for what she and Tom had planned, a small ceremony right here on the land that had become their sanctuary. Betty from the diner had helped with her hair, pinning wildflowers into the simple braid. "You look beautiful, honey," Betty said, wiping tears from her eyes. "I'm so happy for you both." Lisa looked at her reflection and barely recognized the woman staring back. Her face had color now, healthy and glowing. Her eyes were clear and bright, no longer shadowed with fear. She stood straighter, moved with confidence. This wasn't the broken woman who'd arrived with nothing. This was someone who'd rebuilt herself from the ground up. The ceremony was held in the meadow behind the house, the same place where Tom had proposed. About 30 people attended, mostly locals who'd watched their relationship develop and the ranch transform. Carlos and Danny were there with their families. Deputy Chen came, having become a friend over the months. Even the women from the first ranch retreat had driven out for the celebration. Tom stood under an arch that Carlos had built from branches and adorned with wildflowers. When Lisa walked toward him across the grass, his face lit up in a way that still made her heart skip. He was wearing a clean button-down shirt and his best jeans, his cowboy hat held respectfully in his hands, simple and honest, just like him. The ceremony was short and sweet. They'd written their own vows, and when it was Tom's turn to speak, his voice was steady but emotional. "Lisa, a year ago you walked into my life when both of us had nothing left to give. You were running from your past and I was drowning in mine. But somehow, we saved each other. You taught me that having a broken heart doesn't mean it can't love again. You reminded me what it means to really live, not just exist. I promise to spend every day making you feel safe, valued, and loved. I promise to be your partner in all things. And I promise that our home will always be a place of peace, not pain." Lisa was crying before she even started her vows. "Tom, when I got off that bus, I had $47 and no hope. I thought my life was over, that I'd never be anything more than afraid. But you saw something in me that I couldn't see in myself. You gave me not just a job, but a purpose, not just shelter, but a home, not just safety, but love. You showed me that strong men don't control. They protect. They don't diminish. They empower. I promise to be your partner, to stand beside you in good times and bad. I promise to help you honor the past while building our future. And I promise that I will never stop being grateful for the day you stopped at that bus station." There wasn't a dry eye in the meadow when they exchanged simple gold bands and sealed their vows with a kiss. The small crowd erupted in cheers and applause, and Lisa laughed against Tom's lips, pure joy bubbling up from somewhere deep inside her. The reception was held right there in the yard, with tables set up under string lights that twinkled as evening approached. Betty had organized a potluck, and the table was covered with homemade dishes from everyone in town. There was music from a local band, nothing fancy, just guitar and fiddle playing country songs that had people dancing in the grass. Lisa danced, with Tom, her head resting against his chest as they swayed to a slow song. "Happy?" he murmured into her hair. "Happier than I ever thought possible," she said honestly. "A year ago, if someone had told me this is where I'd be, I wouldn't have believed them." "Believe it," Tom said, pulling back to look at her. "This is real. We're real, and it's only getting better from here." Later in the evening, as the sun began to set, Lisa was approached by 3 women she recognized from various ranch retreats over the past months. They'd all stayed in touch, forming a kind of informal support network. "We wanted to give you something," one of them said, handing Lisa a wrapped package. "All of us who've come through the program contributed." Lisa unwrapped it carefully. Inside was a beautiful hand-stitched quilt. Each square had been made by a different woman who'd stayed at the ranch, and in the center was embroidered, "Second Chance Ranch, where healing begins." "This is incredible," Lisa whispered, running her hands over the careful stitching. "Thank you, all of you." "No, thank you," another woman said. "You gave us hope when we had none. You showed us that life after abuse isn't just possible, it can be beautiful. You're living proof." After they walked away, Tom found Lisa sitting quietly, holding the quilt and crying. "What's wrong?" he asked, concerned. "Nothing's wrong," Lisa said, smiling through her tears. "Everything is so right it almost hurts. I just keep thinking about how much pain it took to get here. All those years of suffering, of feeling worthless and trapped. And I wonder if I would have appreciated this life, this happiness, if I hadn't been through all that darkness first." Tom sat beside her. "I think the same thing sometimes. About losing Rachel. About those years of grief. I hate what you went through, and I hate what I went through. But it led us both here, to each other. And maybe that's the point. Maybe we had to be broken in exactly the right ways to fit together the way we do." As the party continued around them, the couple from the first ranch retreat, Jennifer, approached with her young daughter. "I wanted you to meet someone," Jennifer said. "Sophia, this is Miss Lisa. She's the lady I told you about, the one who helped Mommy." The little girl, maybe 5 years old, looked up at Lisa with big eyes. "Mommy says you're a hero." Lisa's throat tightened. "Your mommy is the hero, sweetheart. She's very brave." "Mommy says you were brave first, and that helped her be brave too," Sophia said seriously. Then she held out a drawing she'd been clutching. "I made this for you." The drawing showed a simple house, a smiling sun, and stick figures labeled Lisa, Tom, and Happy. Lisa felt tears spring to her eyes again. "Thank you, Sophia. This is the most beautiful wedding gift I've ever received." She knelt down and hugged the little girl. "You take care of your brave mommy, okay?" "I will," Sophia promised solemnly. As the evening grew late and guests began to leave, Tom and Lisa stood together waving goodbye. Carlos was the last to go, and he pulled Tom aside. "Boss, I've worked on this ranch since I was Danny's age. Watched it grow, watched it nearly die, and now watched it come back to life. Your grandfather would be proud of what you've done here. But more than that, he'd be proud of the man you've become. You and Lisa, you're building something special. Not just a business, but a real legacy." After everyone had gone and they'd cleaned up, Tom and Lisa walked through the quiet ranch. The horses were settled for the night, the cattle were calm in the pasture, and the house glowed warm with light. "Want to see something?" Tom asked, leading her to the barn. Inside, he'd been working on a surprise. An old buckboard wagon had been restored and decorated with flowers and ribbons. "Our getaway car," he said with a grin. "I thought we could take a ride under the stars. Our first night as husband and wife." They climbed into the wagon and Tom guided the horse out into the moonlit fields. The night was clear and cool, stars scattered across the sky like diamonds. They rode in comfortable silence for a while, just enjoying being together. "Tom," Lisa said eventually, "I want to expand the retreat program. I've been thinking about it a lot. What if we could offer longer stays, help women not just heal, but actually learn skills they could use to support themselves? Ranching, bookkeeping, cooking. Give them real tools for independence. I love it, Tom said immediately. What else? I want to write about our story. Not for publication necessarily, but to share with women in the program. To let them know that healing is possible, that happy endings are real. She paused. And I want us to start thinking about adoption. I know it's a big step, but I want to give a child the kind of safe, loving home I never had growing up. Tom stopped the wagon and turned to her. I've been thinking about adoption too. I didn't want to bring it up too soon, but yes, absolutely yes. Let's build a family, Lisa. Let's fill this ranch with love and laughter and second chances for everyone who needs them. They kissed under the stars, and Lisa felt a completeness she'd never known existed. This wasn't the fairy tale ending where everything was perfect. They'd still have hard days. There would still be moments when the past crept in, when old fears surfaced. But they'd face it together, and that made all the difference. The wagon ride took them past the hilltop where Tom had proposed, and they stopped to look at the carving in the rock. Their initials, the date, and that one word, forever. You know what I realized? Lisa said. That word doesn't scare me anymore. Forever used to sound like a prison sentence. But with you, it sounds like a promise. A good one. It is a promise, Tom said. Every day for the rest of our lives, I'm going to love you. I'm going to choose you. And I'm going to be grateful that you walked into my life when we both needed saving. As they rode back to the ranch house, Lisa thought about the journey that had brought her here. Every painful step, every moment of fear, every time she almost gave up. It had all led to this, to a love that was real and honest and safe, to a home that was truly hers, to a purpose that gave her life meaning. The next morning, Lisa woke in Tom's arms in the bedroom they now shared.